Thank you so much for joining us for the Lung Cancer Foundation of America World Lung Cancer Day social media takeover. We are talking to patients and advocates about living with lung cancer in all of the different ways they've used their lungs.
So we want you to join us live throughout the day for fascinating conversations with patient advocates on Facebook, and then over on Instagram and Twitter. You'll learn more about how research makes it possible for so many people to be truly living with lung cancer. Something that, many years ago, not so many years ago, we couldn't have said that. So it's pretty exciting. And we'll show you what they're doing, what they love to do with their families and their friends.
So let's take it away with a new patient advocate, Stephanie Williams. Now, she was recently diagnosed with ALK positive lung cancer, and that was just last fall.
I've just started watching TikTok, like so many people my age. So pretty soon it'll just be ours again. Anyway, but Stephanie has an amazing TikTok account where she shares videos about her experience. And today she's talking to our colleague Sarah about how she built a network of support and how she and her family relax with the help of a 4Runner, snacks, and some seriously well-prepared time spent outdoors.
Thank you for joining us on World Lung Cancer Day. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sarah.
So I want to talk, I cannot wait to get into the 4Runner picnics, which is what you guys love to do. But I want to start really quickly by, you're probably our most recently diagnosed patient advocate. And I think what's so amazing about you is that you're already really working into advocacy, and figuring out how to use your lungs. So maybe you could talk very briefly about your diagnosis and how this came about.
I had a mild cough, so mild that I wasn't very motivated to get it checked out. This started around spring of 2021. By fall of 2021, it was bothering me enough that I brought it up at a regularly scheduled doctor's appointment. It was that appointment that I requested a chest x-ray just to see if maybe there was something else going on, maybe some COVID that I didn't know I had left some scarring. I wasn't sure, but I wanted that x-ray. Thankfully, my doctor was very obliging, ordered the x-ray for that same day, and the rest is history, as they say. A mass was spotted on that x-ray that led to a lot more imaging, biopsy, and ultimately to the removal of 2 lobes of my right lung to remove an ALK positive adenocarcinoma, or non-small cell lung cancer. And after that surgery, I did some chemotherapy. And at this point, I am on an oral medication to help keep any remaining cancer cells down, keep them at bay, keep them from spreading. And in those early days, there was so many appointments, so much information being thrown at me that it was hard to balance learning all of that information with the emotional state that a cancer diagnosis will put you in. So there was a lot of roller coaster, there were tears, there was panic, but a person can't sustain that level of panic for very long, at least not in a healthy way and not ideally. So since then, the bulk of my biggest and scariest treatment so far, hopefully stays that way, but the surgery and the chemo are now finished. And I'm sort of settling into how I feel on this medication and what my day-to-day looks like now. And that's something I can lean into, the routine of the day-to-day, to remind me that we're all still here, we're still doing our thing, our family is still functioning as it did before my diagnosis.
I just wonder, what is your best advice for someone who is in that situation? Is it, bring someone to the appointments with you, or get yourself situated with a good counselor? I mean, I can imagine all of these things might be useful to many different people, but how did you get through it?
I like to think of it as diversifying your support system. So I was fortunate to have people in my life that could support me intellectually by reading through some research articles, from breaking down the information I was being given into smaller bits that I could understand. That was my husband. He has a medical background. He, went through enough schooling to filter through research papers and articles and learn that for me in a way, and then explain it to me. I had other family members and friends who were really there for the emotional support, the listening, the hand holding, crying with me. I had friends that would laugh with me when I just needed to laugh about the absurdity that it seemed was going on with this diagnosis. And then, I had friends who, there's the people, the acquaintances that I didn't necessarily share a lot of what was going on with me, but I knew that I could go out and have a nice lunch with them, hear about their lives, hear about their children, and not have to explain what this medication is, explain what a PET scan is, and spend so much time regurgitating all the information that I was still learning to explain to someone else, so I could turn off with certain people when I needed to, and have my husband there to talk me off the ledge of this big, scary diagnosis, and really have different people supporting me in very different ways, but very necessary ways.
I just think that's such a brilliant description, that diversification of your support network. I think is so wise, because I don't know how many people could fill multiple roles. I mean, like you say, your husband has the medical background, and then, you know, and I have heard that from a number of other people living with lung cancer. I'm trying to remember who told me the story, but somebody told me the story that they had an acquaintance who um, they weren't all that close to, but once they were diagnosed, came over one day and like said, "You sit down, I'm going to clean your house. And what else can I do for you?" And she said, "I'm just trying to wash my hair." And she said, "Oh, I'll take care," you like, and washed her hair. You know what I mean? And these things that just sort of you wouldn't expect from various people, but are so meaningful in that moment where you really are trying to rebuild your life in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, just making a meal for someone, or saying, the neighbor, my neighbor I'm very close with, said, "Send your daughter over. We're putting a movie on over here and ordering a pizza. Just send her over. I'll send her back in a few hours, and just, you chill. You do something that you need to do, or take a nap or whatever." But it's small acts like that that can let you know that someone's there, even if they're not sitting across the table from you, being, your verbal emotional support. They're taking something off your plate, and that means a lot.
Yeah. Well, speaking of relaxing and having a good time, you've got to tell me about these 4Runner picnics. I've been looking forward to this conversation for like a week and a half, because I am outdoors with my kids all the time. We're out in the sun, we're out in the mountains, we're out biking and hiking and horseback riding and kayaking. And I mean, whatever it is, we're out there doing it. So I love the idea that you guys have a system with your 4Runner to go out and spend time in the outdoors.
We do. This 4Runner is, sometimes we call it our second child. And at first, I'm not a car person. I could care less. My husband is really into this 4Runner specifically. So when we got it, I was like, sure, whatever, it's another vehicle. But then the world sort of shut down with COVID, and we were sort of pushed outside to find other ways to spend our weekends than the normal Target, Costco restaurant circuit that we had been on for so long. The museums were closed. All of our go-to family-friendly activities weren't there anymore. So we would pack up the 4Runner with just sandwiches, picnic food, some bananas, granola bars, and we would drive out to state forests or state parks and end up eating lunch there. And our daughter was only 4 at the time, and her legs were a little small for the more strenuous hikes. So sometimes we would get to the park and we would end up just sort of hanging out in the car at the park, and we'd put the trunk up, put the seats down, and we can all fit back there. Sometimes one of my legs is draped over Ryan's knee and Liza's sitting on my lap, but we would we would fit back there, we would eat our food, we would kind of lay down. They'd bring stuffed animals, and Ryan and Liza would play with stuffed animals. And it just felt like we were away from the doldrums of our weekly routine. We were out in nature, but we weren't necessarily, putting in we weren't in the elements. We had shelter and we had our snacks, and we were happy that way.
Snacks. Thank goodness for snacks.
With snacks, there's comfort. But now my daughter will be in first grade this year. She's a tall kid, and we were getting a little cramped in the trunk. So we got an awning that's retractable that clips to the side of the 4Runner, pops out into a little roof, and we can put our chairs under there. And be it in a parking lot or just pulled over into the grass somewhere, we can have a little picnic in the shade.
I am so impressed by this because I can't tell you how many swim meets, cross country meets, lacrosse meets, baseball games. I mean, all of these things that, you just you're either standing in the blazing sun, melting, or you're freezing your patootie off, with like the snow, or you're just standing there and there's nowhere to sit. And you're like, well, I could sit in the dirt or I'll just stand here. So I'm so impressed by this. Where did you get this idea?
I have to hand that to my husband. He watches videos and TV shows about people who go overlanding, they call it, where they have like a whole, like you can pop a tent off of the top of your vehicle and have a shower hooked up, a ladder. Now we are nowhere near that level of preparedness, but this was kind of a way for us to get that experience of we can sort of go out all day and have our little shelter, and we can make our little lounge area wherever we go now.
Mommy and Dad are taking down the awning for a 4Runner picnic. My mom is getting stronger now. They're putting up the awning. It's pretty nice.
And it's helped us continue to get outside and get out there on the weekends. We even popped it out in our cul-de-sac and just ate our pizza like in front of our driveway one evening under the awning because we were so excited when we first got it.
I think that's so brilliant. I mean, it's one of those very odd little silver linings, I think, of COVID, that it forced us to get sort of creative and like totally change up a routine. It forced us to get outdoors. And so, there were so many very terrible things about it, but I know from a family perspective, it forced our family to figure out what we were going to be able to do. And it really drove that, go get in the outdoors because that's a good, safe, healthy place to be. And I just love the creativity. Not only the creativity of finding something like this and deciding, hey, this is going to be our family activity, but as I feel like I might have been a hobbit in another life, but as somebody who does not go anywhere without snacks and something to drink and a bite, a good, something that I can offer people, I'm very impressed with your system.
Thanks. It's more appealing for our daughter too, to know that when she gets there, she can hang out and have snacks and not be rushed. And it's not go hike out in the mosquitoes and the sun and the sweat and then just have to get back in the car and leave. It's incentive of like, when we get there, we get to spend the time and have that quality time all together, just not at home.
Happy World Lung Cancer Day. Hey. Happy World Lung Cancer Day.
I think what's so wonderful about this 4Runner picnic idea is that it really shows how you're living with lung cancer. And that's what we like to emphasize on World Lung Cancer Day, is how many people aren't just sort of getting by with lung cancer or managing lung cancer or struggling with lung cancer. They're living with lung cancer.
When I think of a lung cancer patient, or when I thought about lung cancer patients before my own diagnosis, I had this image of someone in a hospital bed. You see movies and TV shows of cancer patients, and it looks like someone who is at the end of their life, quite frankly. So to be going out with my family away from not only home, but away from any medical care, away from hospitals. I didn't know if that was going to be something I could do when I was having most of my lung removed, when I was going through chemotherapy. But to end up in a state where I'm healthy enough to do these activities that I love, and I see no end in sight of that ability, I have to thank the researchers and the investigators that are constantly looking not only for improved therapeutics, but therapeutics that will extend that healthfulness and that wellness as we continue to treat this disease. It's not enough just to treat the lung cancer, but to actually allow people to do the activities that they enjoy so much, to spend time with their families in the setting of their choosing, whether that's in the back of a 4Runner, on a surfboard out in the ocean, or just at home on the couch.
Well, you say it so beautifully, and I love doing World Lung Cancer Day because what it shows is how all of these people are doing the things that are most meaningful. You know, just like you say, whether it's on the beach or watching hummingbirds or gardening or art or I mean, running, working out in the garage. Like I've just talked to so many people with all of these passions that are all made possible by research. And I mean, we were just together at a conference talking to a bunch of the researchers who are looking for the next treatment, the next therapy, the next way to improve lung cancer treatment. And they are so inspired by people like you um, because they get to see what it means, you know, what their work means to people living with lung cancer. So we're just so grateful for all of your work and for joining us on World Lung Cancer Day.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here celebrating with you.
Well, if you haven't checked out Stephanie's TikTok channel, Diane, as you mentioned earlier, you have to. She and her family, they just have so much fun together, and it's really an inspiration to watch them. She is a wonderful example of what it means to be truly living with lung cancer. And if you'd like to join in on the World Lung Cancer Day conversation, you can find Lung Cancer Foundation of America on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and TikTok. Can't forget that. Throughout the day today. And all you have to do is search the hashtags, hashtag living with lung cancer or hashtag LCFA research.
And if you need to know more about living with lung cancer, you know, LCFA has so many resources available. Visit lcfamerica.org to find accurate and also hopeful information, including videos and podcasts and so much more. And if you'd like to help support LCFA in its mission to fund groundbreaking lung cancer research, you can text LCFA to 41444